Last time we talked about the story of Evelyn Romulus and about how her husband cruelly committed her into an insane asylum. We got to experience with Evelyn the shocking reality of what it is to become a patient of a 1904 insane asylum. Well, hi, welcome. Thanks for joining me in another night filled with tales of terror. So tonight we're checking out part 2 of the video about Evelyn Romulus and what she's going through being forced into an insane asylum. So at the end of this video, I will be letting you know, if you haven't already figured it out, whether the story is fact, fiction, or somewhere in the middle. So I'm going to ask that you get comfortable, click the like and subscribe buttons because it really helps me out. Turn down the lights, and let's begin. This has to be a nightmare. Please let me awake from the horror. Evelyn lay curled up in her bed, clutching her blankets as she stared hopelessly at the door. Why doesn't anybody believe me that I'm sane? That I simply should not be here? When will this end? There was a light knock on the door. Evelyn sat up. This knocking was different from the hard, fast knocks she'd already heard. The door slowly opened, and to Evelyn's surprise and relief, it was Davis. He was here to take her home. Filled with emotion, Evelyn hurried out of her bed and ran to him, her mind racing with confusion, joy, and disbelief. How are you here? I've been punished greatly. I am sane, and I know to never attempt such a perverse and dangerous action again. Oh, please, Davis, take me out of here before it's too late. Davis embraced her and shushed her. Be calm. You are going to be fine. I will go and speak with the asylum director and see about bringing you home. Davis tried to step away from Evelyn, but she held on to him. I am afraid if I let you go, you will not return, and this may only be a cruel joke played in my dreams. Please take me with you. Davis kissed her lips softly and smiled at her. I am not a cruel joke, my love. I am yours for always. Davis brought Evelyn to her bed and laid her down. Leaning over her, he gazed into her eyes. I have been so foolish, he said, but no longer. I will see to it you return to me. Davis pounded his fist on the wall. This should have never been, and I will take it all back. He pounded his fist on the wall again. You are right. You will not behave in such a way to embarrass me again. He hit the wall again with his fist. He was beginning to frighten Evelyn. He had so quickly changed from warm and loving and back to the cold and angry man that had placed her here. Davis glared at her. Why do you look at me like this? It was for your own good that I did this. Evelyn tried to speak, but he grabbed her by the shoulders and started shaking her. This is all you're doing. Do you understand? Davis hollered, You're doing. And before Evelyn's eyes, Davis's face began to change into something dark and grotesque. Evelyn could no longer hold in her screams. This only furthered Davis's anger and hatred. With his hands on her shoulder, he violently shook her.
Your fault! Your fault!
Evelyn jolted awake with a gasp. She could hear banging and screaming in her room. What is happening to me? She cried as her body trembled. A nurse knocked on the door and announced it was time for breakfast. The other woman got out of bed and shuffled out of the room. Evelyn stayed seated on her bed. She told the nurse, I am not hungry. I truly feel sick. The nurse raised her eyebrows, then left the room. Moments later, a doctor entered the room accompanied by the nurse. He checked Evelyn for a fever, checked her eyes, pressing on her stomach and other parts of her body. He gave her a thorough examination. The doctor determined that Evelyn had syphilis and was immediately injected with malaria. They told her this would combat the syphilis and she would be feeling better soon. Evelyn was bedridden for 2 days, so meals were brought to her. She was given a small serving of prunes and a piece of toast with rancid butter for breakfast. She was also given tea that looked and tasted like murky water. Lunch and dinner consisted of watered-down pea soup and stale bread, again with a cup of the murky tea water. During that time, laughter would come when the other patients left the room. Evelyn was losing her mind with all the torment. Her hair was matted with dried blood. Her wounds had formed scabs. When will I finally break? She thought to herself. On the 3rd day, Evelyn finally broke down. Evelyn sat crying on her bed, holding her ears, trying to block out that laughter. The nurse walked into the room and Evelyn started to wail. She couldn't take it any longer. She jumped out of her bed and ran to the nurse, grabbing onto her. Evelyn begged the nurse to make them go away. She told her they were trying to drive her insane. "They're going to kill me soon," she cried. The nurse was frightened and called out for help. Some male orderlies hurried into the room and took hold of Evelyn. This sent Evelyn into a further panic. She screamed and struggled against the men as they carried her from the room. Evelyn was brought into an examination room and strapped to a chair. She cried and begged for anyone to listen to her, but she was ignored. That is until Dr. Roman Green entered the room. He calmly asked her to tell him all about what was ailing her. Feeling a slight wave of relief, Evelyn told him about the laughter, the hole in the wall, how everyone was attacking her, and how nobody believed that she wasn't sick and did not deserve to be in this place. Dr. Green looked over her chart, then looked at her. She could barely make eye contact with him. She felt so much anger and anguish. "Evelyn? May I call you Evelyn?" he politely asked. She nodded. "I believe you are well, but let's just make sure that is indeed the case." She looked at him confused. "How?" "Well, to medically conclude that you are not mentally insane, there are some tests you will need to go through. And if your results are at or above a specific scale of points, then you will be on your way before you know it." "So then let's get started," she said with a hint of enthusiasm in her voice for the first time since being inside that place. The first step was easy enough. Evelyn patiently read cards with words on them so her intellect could be evaluated. After that, she was asked to describe what she saw in the odd picture shown to her. This lasted for 7 hours without a break. With a full bladder, empty stomach, and raging headache, Evelyn's requests for a break went unacknowledged. At one point, she pounded her fists on the table and stood up, demanding a break. Her only response was a glare from her doctor while orderlies shoved her back into her chair. Evelyn's mind roiled with questions about why this was happening to her. She was always a good person. None of this made any sense. Sent back to her room, she collapsed onto her bed and all went dark. There, laughing again. Evelyn woke to her room filled with laughter. As usual, she would hold her hands to her ears and cry out for the laughter to stop. And when this happened, the other women in the room would wake up and shout out with her. It was as if her frenzy was contagious. Then, the nurse and orderlies would rush in, yell, and force them to all shut up. Tonight was different, though. Evelyn woke to that laughter. This time she held her hands to her ears and told herself, "I don't hear you. You are not real." She peered over to the other women. They slept. One was talking in her sleep like she always did. Another was crying in her sleep like she always did. The third woman lay there still as if she were dead. "Oh my God, she's dead." Evelyn scrambled out of bed, swung open the door, and began to scream, "She's dead, she's dead." Other patients began to scream, "She's dead, she's dead." Again, the orderlies and a staff nurse hurried over to Evelyn's room, while other nurses and orderlies tried to establish some order with the other patients. Angry with Evelyn, the nurse and orderlies forced themselves into the room, nearly shoveling Evelyn to the floor. They looked at the other women in the room. They all sat up in their beds. The one Evelyn thought was dead started laughing, and the other two women joined in. Evelyn didn't know what to say. She truly believed that the woman was dead. The orderlies grabbed Evelyn by her arms and yanked her out of the room. They had had enough, they told her. Evelyn was shoved into a dimly lit room with a single bed and 4 walls, and that was it. Terrified, she tried to race out of the room before they shut and locked her in. She wasn't fast enough. She banged on the door. She screamed. She paced the room. She screamed some more. It was 24 to 48 hours later when the staff finally opened the door and found Evelyn on the ground, wet from her own urine. Without a word, she was scooped up and taken into a large room with a large wheel in the center. The sudden light burned Evelyn's eyes, and she didn't have her mental faculties in order yet, so Evelyn didn't realize that she was being tied to the large wheel. As soon as Evelyn was secured to the wheel, a doctor Evelyn did not recognize ordered the wheel to be spun. This was torture. Evelyn squeezed her eyes shut to minimize the dizziness she was feeling from the spinning, but the spinning grew faster and faster. Evelyn screamed for them to stop, but the wheel continued to spin until she passed out. That wasn't the worst of it. The testing became more abusive. Evelyn, barely able to walk, was sat in a chair with her arms and legs strapped. The doctors explained that they needed to see her reaction and timing of her reactions to the different sensations she was about to experience. Evelyn's arms and legs were ruthlessly pinched, causing her to cry out from the sharp pain of the pinches. The next test done on Evelyn was to take needles and press them into her feet. The pain was like fire under her feet. She cried out for mercy, but she was sadly ignored. Another experiment was to pull out Evelyn's hair. Each experiment grew more and more severe to the point Evelyn began to scream, curse, and spit on the doctors. Because of this, they had to mask her mouth shut. It was so tight, she could barely breathe. Taken back to her room, Evelyn lay on her bed defeated. Then the laughter came. She got to her feet and, barely able to walk, she stumbled around the room, swiping her hands across the walls. She desperately searched for the hole in the wall that the laughter was coming from, but she found nothing. Evelyn fell to the floor and began to talk to herself. I can't take this anymore. They are going to kill me. I can't let them kill me. It has to be my choice. I will decide when I die. She began to scream over the laughter. Do you hear me? I decide when I will die. I decide. It is for me to decide. She raged on and on until she started to laugh at her situation, at her life. She sat in the center of her room and laughed until they came in and took her away. Night came and went. Days and weeks passed, and her room remained empty. Evelyn never returned to her room. Sadly, to this day, no one will say what happened to Evelyn. Someone knows, but they'll never tell. So what'd you think about this story? Do you think it was true or not true? Well, this story is actually a fictional story that I wrote for tonight's video. It's about time to wrap things up. I appreciate you spending your time with me. And before we go, can I ask that you please click the like and subscribe buttons, because it really does help me out a lot. And prepare for more tales of terror delivered to you weekly at 3 a.m. So until then, stay safe and stay scary.